He meets her the way some people meet storms, recognizing the beauty, bracing for the damage. On the 47th floor of the Asturias Hotel, where the chandeliers look like galaxies and the carpet hushes even the boldest footsteps, a man who calls himself Miles opens a door for a woman who thinks the night will make her career. The tabloids know her as Emma Laurent, the stubborn investigative voice who doesn't blink when powerful men bring lawyers. The inner circle knows she's the one who walks straight into rooms that say authorized personnel only and asks the heir why it thinks it's in charge. Tonight her dress is midnight silk, her hair swept up with the kind of effort that pretends to be effortless, and her eyes keep flicking to the hallway where the board of Varon Dynamics will emerge and bury a scandal in perfect smiles. He's her driver, her shadow, her polite yes ma'am in a dark suit that fits too well to be rented. He says Ms. Laurent like he's testing the sound for weakness. He is of course not Miles. He's Liam Varon, the secret majority owner of the very empire she plans to unmask, a man raised on sleek private jets and colder boardrooms, a man who learned to keep his real center welded shut. And he has made a calculation that would horrify half of Wall Street. If Emma tells the truth the way she does, the company might burn, yet it might finally become honest enough for him to live inside it. Text me the moment you're ready to leave, he says, holding the door to the ballroom. Gaze steady, voice low. Emma studies him. You always sound like you already know the headline. He almost smiles. Maybe I just know you prefer the truth to the angle. She steps into the light. Cameras stutter. Music glides. Charity gala. Of course. Vines of glass ribbon the ceiling. Cocktails wear ice like diamonds. And the old families arrive with the kind of grace money can't buy after all, only rehearse. Emma moves like intent wrapped in silk, crossing the room where Claudia Harrow, interim CEO of Varon Dynamics, holds court by the sculpture that looks like a comet frozen mid-scream. Claudia's lips flash the red of victory. Her posture says I have buried larger problems than you. Emma waits for the perfect heartbeat, silence falling between the pianist's last chord and the clink of applause, and then begins. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to. Ms. Harrow, she says, did the board authorize the acquisition of Quanter Labs knowing its flagship algorithm manipulated drug trial outcomes? It's a razor slipped under the skin of the evening. A few guests cough like they've inhaled the wrong air. Claudia blinks the way a cat does when it's calculating distance. Our due diligence was thorough, Claudia says. Emma's phone buzzes, a text from Miles. Exit east balcony if needed. Security shifting. She doesn't ask how he knows. She never does. Because every time the ground begins to tilt, he is already where it's tilting to. Thorough, Emma repeats, neutral, and her fingers brush the micro recorder hidden in her clutch. Would thorough include the email from your chief scientist warning that the model can be tuned to pass failed compounds if the waiting on adverse events is softened? The room feels colder. Claudia's smile tightens. I'm afraid you've been misinformed. Great, Emma says softly. Prove it. Cameras rise like a field of mechanical sunflowers turning toward the heat. Claudia nods toward security, who begin to move. Not toward Emma, interestingly, but toward the side doors, where a man with a shaved head and a dangerous calm watches the room like he already owns it. Victor Lyle, venture barbarian, specialist in hostile takeovers. He shouldn't be here, which means he's here for something he shouldn't have. Miles, Liam, has already stepped off the ballroom floor. He threads through staff-only corridors with the easy confidence of someone who never hears the word no. He reaches the east balcony before Emma does, leans on the rail over a glittering river of traffic far below, and texts a second message she'll read only if necessary. If they corner you, ask for a private statement room. There's a camera in the smoke detector. Yours. He had it installed 2 hours ago under a name that doesn't exist. Emma lasts another 7 minutes in the ballroom. 7 minutes of perfectly aimed questions. 7 minutes of Claudia's legal parlance wrapped in velvet. 7 minutes of wealthy people pretending this is all very distasteful and also delicious. Then a gloved hand brushes Emma's elbow. Too polite to be forceful and too firm to be optional. This way, Ms. Laurent. She doesn't look back, because she has never looked back, because the only way to walk through a wall is to keep moving until the wall decides it's a door. The private statement room is colder than the ballroom, and there's water that's been opened at a right angle to suggest generosity. Emma sets her clutch on the table and says, "Who's recording?" The head of security blinks. "Excuse me." "Someone is always recording," she says, almost playful. "If it's not you, it's me." He hesitates, and that's a crack. He gestures and two men step back. "We merely want to ensure accuracy." "Lovely," Emma says, lifting her eyes to the smoke detector. "Accuracy makes my world go round." On the other side of the wall, Liam watches the feed on his phone. He shouldn't. He built a life on don't reveal, don't confess, don't attach. But the night he first drove Emma, last winter in a rainstorm that polished the streets like obsidian, she'd sat in the back seat reading a transcript of a whistleblower interview like it was scripture. And when she got to the part where the test subject's heart had failed, she had pressed her palm to the window and said, so quietly he could barely hear, "They are not numbers. They are people." And everything inside him, years of curated detachment, had tilted. Inside the statement room, Claudia walks in alone. She's smart enough to know too many bodies suggest guilt. She sits without being asked. "You've built a brand out of moral clarity," she tells Emma. "It must feel very clean." "I take a lot of showers," Emma replies, and Claudia's mouth curves despite herself. "Your source," Claudia continues, "wants money or revenge. You know that." "My source," Emma says, "wants to sleep." Claudia's eyes sharpen. "What do you want?" Emma considers. The thing about ambition is that it's rarely pure. It's flecked with a fear of irrelevance, the need to prove someone, rarely a stranger, wrong. But for Emma it had started before ambition. When her father died in a hospital corridor that smelled like lemons and low budgets. When she learned the charity wing had his name not because he had money but because a rich man wanted to look generous. She learned then that stories were the only way to make the powerful hold still. "I want," she says, "for consequences to be real." Claudia leans back. "What if I told you this is bigger than me, bigger than this deal, that your story could spook markets, trigger layoffs, pull research from promising lines, kill more futures than it saves?" Emma feels something like grief. It always arrives when someone tries to bargain with fear, as if it were math. Then maybe you shouldn't build a system that needs secrets to stand. Liam watches Emma say it and thinks, if she knew the thing I am not saying, would she still say it? Because the secret isn't only that he's Liam. It's that he's orchestrated a quiet war inside his own house. For months he's forced transparency into places where rot like the dark, shredded sweetheart contracts, protected engineers who were told to fudge. He hired and fired by email attached to shell identities. He rerouted bonus money from Victor Lyle's loyalists to the team that refused to falsify a single data point. And he did it all as nobody so the change would be clean of his name. But Lyle sniffed the shift. Lyle has come to end it. The door opens and the head of security reappears. "Ladies," he says, meaning to be neutral and failing. "There's a concern on the floor." Claudia stands. Emma stands. The camera in the smoke detector watches. In the ballroom, the music has softened to a heartbeat, and the laughter has cut itself. Lyle stands at the center, a man who enjoys a stage. "Varan Dynamics," he declares, "has lost its way. Tonight I offer a path back to discipline." He gestures and a row of men and women, minor shareholders, some frightened, some hungry, step forward like a chorus. Effective immediately, we move to install a new slate. The board's faces barely move. That's the thing about old power, it never sweats in public. But this is a coup, and it has momentum. Emma sees it as soon as she emerges from the hall. She also sees Miles, Liam, standing near the back, inscrutable as ever, eyes on everything at once. She approaches him, voice low. "If he wins, your company stops pretending it's a company and starts being a weapon." "My company?" he says, and the single raised eyebrow is almost convincing. She stares at him. "You always say you're when you talk about Varan. The way other drivers say my route. That and you know where every camera is in this building." A breath catches in his chest. "Maybe I just like being prepared." "Maybe," she says. "But if you were a man who could do something right now, would you?" It is the most intimate question anyone has ever asked him. Not "who are you?" Not "do you love me?" Not "will you stay?" Will you do the thing that costs? He should say no. He should let the board play its clean, predatory games. He should watch the tide go out and take the rot with it, or bring the rot back in, whichever way the math tilts. But Emma has placed her hand on the scale. He feels it. He turns and steps through the crowd like a knife sliding through silk. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. Mr. Lyle, he says, I think you're making announcements at the wrong party. Lyle smirks. And you are. Liam's jacket button clicks closed. A small sound, a private promise. Liam Varon, he says, and the room exhales as if it's been holding a breath for 10 years. Emma feels her pulse spike. She hears the echo of their car rides. His quiet, her questions, the way he always knew where not to be seen. And it stitches into a new pattern that spells his name. The secret identity isn't a mask. It's a mirror she didn't know she was holding. Lyle laughs, but there's unease inside it. So the phantom steps into the light. You own shares through a jungle of shells, rumor says. Cute. You think showing your face changes the math? It changes the terms, Liam says. Because now I'm calling the emergency clause. He looks at Claudia. Section 14. In the event of hostile action that endangers the integrity of ongoing clinical validations, a consolidated majority held by Class C silent partners may exercise veto over slate changes pending independent audit. Claudia's relief is a blade she hides behind corporate poise. We'll need proof of your holdings. Liam nods to his counsel, who appears like a genie who lives in briefcases, and within moments documents are on screens. Screens bloom across the ballroom like a sudden, dangerous spring. Numbers and signatures, all the ways reality wears a suit. Lyle's smile curdles. You can delay me, Liam. You can't stop me. I'm not trying to stop you, Liam says. I'm trying to make sure if you win, you inherit a company that can face a mirror without flinching. Ms. Lauron. He turns, and the room swivels with him. You asked for consequences. Would you like to watch one happen? It's indecent, almost, to hand her the match in public. But he's done hiding. Emma steps forward. On the record? On the record, he says, and his eyes tell her the risk is real. Then let's talk about Quanter, she replies, lifting the recorder. And about an internal memo authorizing an algorithm to be audited by an independent team tomorrow morning, overseen by whatever slate sits in those chairs at noon. She glances at the board. Several flinch. If we find manipulation, the full story goes live. If we don't, we run a different story. The rare one where someone tells the truth before they're forced. It is a dare and an offering. It is also a trap, but an honest one. Lyle calculates. He can't be seen refusing transparency in a room full of donors and cameras. Fine, he says. Audit. Noon. And when we're done, I'll take your seat, Liam. And I'll sell the parts of this house that don't appreciate discipline. Liam holds his gaze. Careful. Some houses are haunted. The party shivers back into motion because rich rooms will always try to dissolve conflict in champagne. But everyone is listening now. Emma's recorder hums like a small, brave engine. After, in the service corridor between the ballroom and the kitchen where the air smells like rosemary and ambition, Emma finds Liam alone by a steel door. Hands braced as if he's holding up a wall. She stops a few feet away. So she says, Miles. Liam, he answers, with a wince that is almost a smile. You were my driver for 6 months. I was your student, he says simply. You convinced me that truth is an asset class. The rarest kind. You could have told me. He nods, looking at the floor where the light pools in a perfect rectangle. I should have. I thought I could protect the work by keeping my name out of it. And then I kept protecting the lie because it was convenient. Then it was habit. Then it was a reflex. He meets her eyes. And then there was you. It lands in her chest with the force of a complicated kindness. I would have written the story anyway, she says. You know that. I know. He searches her face. Will you write it now? Yes. She lets the word sit. But I'll write the audit too. If the algorithm's clean, I say so. If it's dirty, I say so louder. He nods again, a deeper acceptance. Then whatever happens, it happens in daylight. Daylight, she repeats, and the word feels like a promise. At 7:03 a.m., the audit team begins. Conference glass, white boards dense with math like a language for ghosts, Coffee strong enough to take the paint off a yacht. Emma watches through the pain as engineers, some terrified, some relieved, run the model against raw data. Liam stands with her, his presence steady and non-intrusive, the way it was in the car. Outside, New York runs its morning hustle like percussion. At 10:42 a.m., they find it. A waiting parameter tilted like a picture frame after an argument. Not enough to be obvious, enough to pass a marginal compound. The lead engineer, a woman with hair the color of new pennies and a voice that doesn't apologize, circles the line. This was deliberate. Claudia sits, shoulders finally dropping as if she's been carrying a secret too heavy for posture. She signs a termination letter. 2. 3. She authorizes a self-report to the regulator. Lyle watches, expression still, eyes calculating new angles. Emma's recorder captures everything. The decision to halt affected trials, the statement that will go to investors and patients and the press. She thinks of her father and the corridor and the lemon air, and feels something unclench that's old and tender. At 11:58, the board reconvenes. Noon matters because Lyle made it matter. He rises, smirking in anticipation of blood. Liam doesn't sit. He isn't interested in thrones, not today. Claudia speaks first. Independent audit found parameter manipulation affecting a subset of trial simulations. We are halting the impacted validations, self-reporting, and restructuring governance of the modeling divisions effective immediately. She turns to Lyle. Per Section 14 and the Integrity Clause, slate changes are suspended pending remediation. Lyle opens his mouth, then closes it because the cameras are on and the market is watching and the numbers are pure. You cost your shareholders billions, he says to Liam. Liam doesn't flinch. We bought back our soul at cost, he replies. A bargain. Emma writes that line down because sometimes the job is just knowing which sentence is the spine. She could end her story there, but endings deserve honesty too. After the meeting, on the roof where the city looks like ambition stacked to the horizon, she faces him. Wind lifts the edges of her trench. You put me at risk by not telling me who you were, she says. No accusations. Just facts shaped like air. I did, he says. I thought keeping you close without the truth would be enough. It wasn't. I'm sorry. Say it again, she says, because apologies should be used, not displayed. I'm sorry. Emma. He says her name like it's the first real thing he's owned. If you need to walk away, I'll understand. If you need to write me as the man who hid until it was convenient to appear, write me that way. I earned it. She looks out over the river, catching a glimpse of their reflection in the tower across the street. A woman who chose the hard path, a man trying to deserve the right to follow it. I don't want to write you as convenient, she says. I want to write you as responsible. But we don't get there by pretending this didn't hurt. What would it take, he asks, to begin again without erasing what we are? She turns back, and there is something like laughter in her eyes, bright and dangerous. Real rules, she says. Nos a dos. If you know something, you say it. If I find something, I show it. We don't protect each other from the truth. We protect each other with it. Deal, he says, and for once it's not a contract, it's a vow. Also, she adds, you're buying me a car. Because my driver quit. He breaks, finally, into a real smile. Done. And I'll drive. Until you're sick of me. She steps closer, close enough to smell the clean warmth of his cologne. The citrus note that feels like a summer you earn. I'm not sick of you, she says. I'm just not done testing you. Test me, he whispers. I plan to pass loudly. When the story publishes that evening, the headline doesn't scream. It doesn't need to. Inside the audit that saved a giant, and the man who chose daylight. Investors groan and recalibrate. Patients read and feel seen. Employees forward the link with relief like a hymn. The comments section explodes into its usual chaos, but nestled among the noise are lines that matter. I trust them more now. Thank you for telling us before you had to. My mother is in that trial, thank you. In Emma's apartment, with the city making soft machinery of the night outside, she and Liam sit on the floor with takeout containers between them because ordinary is the truest luxury. She refreshes the analytics because of course she does. He pretends not to watch her face because he already is. You know, she says, there's a real chance you've tanked your wealth. He leans back on his hands. Easy. Maybe I traded some zeros for sleep. She tilts her head. And for me. And for you, he admits. Not because you asked. Because loving you made it impossible not to love the truth too. The word lands and neither of them tries to dress it up. She reaches for his hand. Fingers threading with the familiarity of 1,000 quiet shared miles. If we're doing this, she says, we do it out loud. Out loud, he echoes, and the city obliges with a siren far off, a taxi horn, a laugh floating up from the street. Proof of life. He kisses her like she's a future that refused to blink. She kisses him back like she's not afraid of mirrors anymore. The world beyond them will keep roaring. Markets, rivals, headlines that call them hypocrites and heroes on alternating days. But inside this room is the payoff that money can't fake and power can't counterfeit. A simple, hard-won clarity. In a modern, luxurious world where secrets buy penthouses and lies wear couture, a billionaire finally chooses to be a person first, and a journalist chooses to believe a man who put his name on the line. The algorithm gets rebuilt under glass. The board learns that integrity is a cost center that pays dividends in time. Victor Lyle doesn't disappear. Wolves rarely do. But he learns there are some doors that won't open to him anymore. And that daylight is a currency he can't counterfeit. And Emma and Liam, never Miles again, build a life with rules that sound like a paradox and feel like a home. No secrets, full love, clean math. The last shot is not a helicopter over the city. Not a yacht slicing some obedient sea. It's two people on a couch, laptops glowing, knees touching, laughing at a typo in a sentence that will change something small for someone they'll never meet. Power meets vulnerability. Truth costs more than gold. They pay together, and the receipt is joy. Because sometimes, love isn't found in luxury. It's found in the courage to tell the truth, even when it burns. If you enjoyed Billionaire Behind the Mask, Liam's Secret, Emma's Choice, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories of love, secrets, and second chances, where passion tests power, and the heart always has the final word. Stay tuned. The next story begins where this one dares to end.